project. So far, we just did the start function here, right? So write a function to start the game. This method creates the array of questions. We created that method in our game class here. So we created the start function. Start function basically takes in a trivia type from our main.swift file or our user, their selection. It goes through our array and it creates an array of questions based on the trivia. So far, so good. And we're able to test this in our main.swift file. We went to our main.swift file, we created an instance of game, and we said game.start movie trivia. It reads well, right? Game start movie trivia. Also reads very well. We're able to run it, Command R, and we saw we had 5 questions in movie trivia based on our print statement here. 5 questions were created, right? In all, we have 10 questions. Feel free to add more questions as we go, as we play the game, right? I heard a wait. What's happening?
I don't have that. 5 questions was created.
So make sure you have that print statement before we left for the break. We had a print statement. The last statement in our start method, the last statement in our start method, we had a print statement here saying how many questions were created. So if you have that print statement, go back to your main.swift, just Command R, and you should see the amount of questions. Right? If I was to change movie to say sports trivia and run it, I'll get a different set of questions because I don't think I added many questions. I have 1 question for sports. We could test music. Right? So we could add more questions there as we keep working on that project. Great, let's go back to game. And let's go back to the README. Next challenge. Write a method to check if the question is correct and increment the score by 1. Right? So here we're writing a method, check if the answer is correct, whatever answer the user selected, and increment it by 1, the score. A lot of moving variables. So first, let's go to our created right below start. Do not create a function inside of the function, right? Create a function outside, please. So here, let us right beneath our number 3 here. That's what we're doing now. Function check answer. That's fine. So the user passes in an answer, right? I'll just say user's answer here. User's answer. It's a string. And we have a question. The question that was given to the user. It's of type question. Great. So if user answer equal to question what? Question dot correct answer. Right? We want to do something. Else, we'll just print wrong answer here in that case. And we'll show them what the correct answer is. So question, or rather just show them what the fact is along with the answer. So question that fact, because we have the fact. Every question has a fact there. We'll use that fact here. And we'll make use of a new line. If the answer is correct, we want to increment the score. It's one question, a single question of type question, right? So here, increment the score by 1. So here we have a print statement. We'll say correct answer. New line. Also show them the fact of the question. Build, don't forget to build as you write or as you code. So we have one other thing to do, increment by 1. Yes? What does this create, everybody? New line.
Can you just press on the question?
Press on the question, I'm pressing.
Where it says use this question,
But I'm pressing. What line number?
72.
72.
Can you click the question?
This guy?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean option click?
Yeah.
It is of type question. Let me zoom in here.
Oh, so it's the same as the top. So that question is just the variable of the.
The question is the current question the user is answering.
I know, but I'm saying that there's multiple questions.
Right now we only have one question in that function.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's the question that you use when you put like where you use the answer and the string the question is.
Yeah, this guy, the parameter.
That's the same, but it's supposed to be.
It's the same, yeah. Yeah. By the way, you should have no other question variable in that game. There's only questions. Tiffany?
Questions, yeah.
Yeah. Again, we could refactor this code very easily. Instead of passing the question, we should know what the current question is. So just keep that in mind. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? Yes, you could refactor this. There's always ways to refactor code. I could easily say, know what the current question is every time. Cool. So we have check answer here. This is good. It just prints. It doesn't return anything right now. It just prints if the answer was correct that the user entered. You could do that. You could also do that. It depends. Our game right now, we just print it. But you could return a bool, and if it is, do something. But you still have to do a print statement anyway. Like that print statement we have there, you'd have to take it to the main file. Does that make sense? Like you check if it is true or false, and then print based on that. So basically, you would be taking the print statements out of the game and put it in the main.file. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? If you make a Boolean, basically when we answer the question, we'll get the print statement right away. That's what the logic is here. But yes, you could have a return bool, but you still have to write logic to say print correct or wrong. But that logic would be in the main.swift file. Does that make sense? Because right now, all we have to do in our main.swift file is say check answer and pass in the response from the read line and the current question. Yeah. Cool. All right, so we have check answer. We did that. Let's go back to the read line. Next, number 4, it says write a method that prints out the final score and total questions. That's your job. Did you do it? Did we? What did we do? How do we increment? Majed, how do we increment score by 1? I need to add 1 to score. How can I do that? I have a score variable, so I have a variable called score. Are you Majed? How many Majed? Yes. Score plus equal 1. Excellent. Perfect. So here we incremented the score by 1. So you started with 0, now you have 1, or you might have 3, you increment, it becomes 4. So far, so good? Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Method to check if the answer is correct and increment by score. Okay, we did that. Questions? I saw a hand. All right. Number 4 says, write a method. You could just copy what number 4 says in the README. So we need some method final score. function, final score.
It still goes inside the game, though.
What's that?
It still goes inside the game.
Yeah, I'm still inside the game.
Because I didn't see a bracket on last.
I'm still inside the game. If you want to see the functions you have, you could right-click, or not right-click. Pay attention to where my mouse is. Pay attention to where my mouse is. So if I zoom in here, zoom out. So you see where it says game here, class game. If you click on it, it gives you a drop down. Do we see the drop down? Everybody, do we see the drop down? One more time, let's see it. So here, you see my mouse. My mouse hovers over where it says game here. Do we see trivia game here at the top menu? 1 second. We see trivia game. We see trivia game with the yellow folder. Do we see game.swift? Do we see where it says C here, C for class? Are you in the game.swift file? Do you see that trivia game folder, the blue folder? Andy? Okay, cool. Everybody sees this? Any nays? Okay, at this point, do we see C for class and we see game? Yes? If we click on it, it shows us all our properties and methods. Look, it's beautiful. We have our properties followed by methods. We have a property called question, score. You could jump, right? It's like a jump. It's called the jumper, I think. I recall. It's called the jumper. Now I could jump to any method or property I want. It's very fast that way. I could jump to my final score by clicking on it. Click on it. It goes to final score. Did it do that? Yes? Great. If I want to jump back to some other function, I go to has more questions. It goes to the has more questions computed property. So far, so good? Let me show us one more thing while I'm here. So go to where it says class game open bracket. Everybody, right? Class game open bracket, line 12 where I am. So far, so good? Here I could put into 2 comments here, 2 slashes, followed by MARK, followed by a colon, followed by a dash, followed by properties of game. So here, that's a pragma-mac, right? It's a pragma-mac. It's a way to basically put like a headline for where you want to jump to. Our headline says, those are the properties of game. If we go back to the jumper, click on game. Did I miss something? I probably missed something. The syntax is a bit. I probably missed something here. Mark. Okay, let's use friendly Google. Let me double check on this. So, Pragma Mac. I'm telling you, you gotta use it. Pragma Mark Swift. Oh, there we go. So if we see what I just did, I Googled what I was looking for, and I found an answer. Right? So use double slashes, mark, followed by a colon. Let's try that, see if that works. Oh, sorry, capital. MRK, instructions, sir. At this point, we should be able to go to the jumper and see properties of game. Do we see that? Do we see that? The way the compiler knows it's a pragma mark is by the mark, all caps, followed by a colon. So at this point, it's like a header. Yes. So when to do itself is a compiler directive. It tells the compiler, see this as an extra comment headline, if that makes sense. There's to do, there's fix me, right? There's a bunch of those. So now we could create one right above methods here. let's create one right above methods. So go down to where it says, go down to your first method, where it says methods here. 1 second. So put mark here and put methods. It even actually bolds it now in Xcode 11. It's also a mark. Yeah, it's also a mark. So, but that's a to-do is you do it and you remove it. You don't leave a to-do. Mark signifies some sort of headline. A to-do is something you have to do yourself. Don't submit code with to-do in there. Right? If you submit code with to-do, you'll get right an eyeball from somebody. So here, methods of game. So methods of game like that. And if we look at our jumper again, right, we should be able to see methods of game here, right? So it's a way to format your code easier for you to read, for you to be able to jump around, because you could have a file with like many methods very easily. So part of it is not adding your properties with your methods. You see like how we have it organized? Our properties come first, our methods follow. Everybody see that? Right? And here we have all instance methods. If you have class or type methods, you could also have some sort of pragma mark for that. So it's easier to read, right? People like to read code that's nice, easy, very, you leave comments, you leave pragma marks, whatever it is, nice and organized. Everybody with me? Okay, just wanted to show us that. We'll see it again, because I'll just say, oh, I forgot the syntax. I have to go back to Google, which is fine. Google things when you're not. Go back to the bottom of the, we're not done with that. We were doing the final score. All right, back to the final score. It says write a method that prints out the final score and total number of questions, total number. We could write that, right? It's just a print statement. Write a method that just prints this out. So go ahead and do it. We have a print statement. And basically, this is the final score, so just tell the user something and show them the score they have and the total number of questions. So like, thanks for playing trivia, your score is 3 out of 4. Okay, based on 5 o'clock here, we have 9 minutes. How are we doing with the final score? We got it, correct? Yes? Okay, so your final score is score out of total questions. Cool? And we build right after, right? We have no errors. So far, so good? Yep. We are doing good. We could finish this on our... Where do we assign what? Oh, where do we assign it? Where's a good place to assign it? Where do we create the questions? Start game. So let's go to start game. So at this point, right here, right above our print statement, in the start game, I'm in start game, right? This question is, where do we assign total questions? Valid question, where should we? When we created the questions, right, in our start function, this is a valid place, right after the for loop. Do we agree? Do we agree? And do we also know why we're doing this? So questions dot count. Right? Why are we doing that? Because remember, we started off with a questions array. It might have 5 in there. So far, so good? So far, so good. Yes or no? We started out with a questions array. It might have 5 questions. So far, so good. Yes, no, maybe. Every time we get a question, we decrement it. Meaning we pop last, right? At some point, we'll end up with 0. So far, so good? If we ask total questions that count, what will it be? 0, right? So we have to capture what the total questions is from the beginning, where we started with the questions array. Yes?
So then, so that's how you do it? Just like that?
Yeah, just like that. So at this point, no matter what, because remember, we're taking the question out of the array. Each time we get a question, correct? So at the end of the game, you want to know how many questions you had at the beginning. So we use a variable for that, a property for that, called total questions. Yes, Duba? Yeah, I just wrote 67. Final score, we're going to go back to it. But Amini brought up a valid question. Where do we assign it? Because we started out with 0. And total question should not be 0. Actually, maybe I do something else. Let's see. In our question here, if you look at the console, if I select, I think that was sports, right? I'm only getting 2 questions. So the total questions is what? 2. If I get 0, it's 0 out of 2. Cool? All right. I want to show us a property, but I don't think we'll do that later. Because that's not for Thursday. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. We'll do that later. All right, so let's go to final score here. This is valid. This is good. We'll go into the README to see what's next. Write a method that resets the game if the player wishes to continue. Right. That makes sense. So let's go ahead and write that. Actually, let's copy the prompt. So function, comment. Here, what do we have? A function called reset. What should reset do? You play in a video game, when you click reset, what happens? What? Everything should, default, right? You should go back to default values. Thank you, Mr. Eric. So basically, let's go up to all our properties. I'll come back down. Let's go to all our properties here and investigate what we need to do. So we have questions, right? So we have questions, we have score, total questions. Has more questions, doesn't matter. It's not a stored property. Do we agree? Everybody, this is not a stored property. So the only properties we are resetting are our stored properties. So far, so good. How many stored properties do we have? 3. So those 3 stored properties, we'll reset them to whatever the defaults were. Everybody with me? So let's go back to reset our reset method and do that. So we have score, reset it to 0. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question. We're going to be using the function start game time reset, are we?
We're just going to reset, and we're going to use start game. That's a good question.
Because if we're going to start the game again, we don't need to change the property.
If we start game, it doesn't change the properties, though.
I mean, this is just going to reassign the value of the function.
For questions, yes.
So we don't need to change it and reset it, right?
You mean questions itself?
No, the total question property.
Yes, that's fine. You don't have to do that. Yeah, that's fine. Valid question. Valid suggestion there. So you don't have to reset total questions. That was a hard suggestion. So we don't have to reset that. But our questions, yes. The last score, whatever the last score was. Yeah. So if my last score was 2 out of 4, I had 2, and I don't reset score, and I play again, it will increment score from whatever score was. So it will be 3, 4, etc. Does that make sense? But a hard suggestion was we have total score in our start already, be in whatever the question count is. So we don't that resets its own self. If that makes sense. Cool? Good. So let's go back to reset. So let's do our questions here. Questions you need to change. Right? Well, questions is 0 at this point. So even questions you don't have to do anything on. Because if you're done, then questions should be 0. So really and truly, do we see that? Do we see that? Because you're done the game, you went through all the questions, it should be 0. Everybody agree with me? I'm sorry? Because you're decrementing question each time you answer a question. So it goes to 0, and then the game stops at 0. Yeah, it empties out. So we're doing that there again is kind of redundant. Does that make sense? So the only thing we're really changing is score. Just talking about it, I just captured that there. But basically, if you want to reset an array, don't do this. Let me show you guys something. So if you have an array, right? If you have an array and you want to go back to 0, don't submit code like that. Basically, what that's doing is getting you memory, right? For something that's already allocated. Or what you want to do on your array is this, questions.remove all, right? So do not do 92, do 93. Remove all removes all the elements. Questions exist already. Remove all just removes all the elements. Everybody with me? But this here creates a new instance. Everybody with me? Right? This is not optimized here. Why should we create a new instance? We have an instance already. Right? It's like every time you want to clean your house, you buy a new house. Right? I mean, that's big money right there. So we're not creating a new house, we're just cleaning the house, right? Sort the things out, throw the clothes out, do what we need to do there. I'll keep remove all here for now, but know that it's a bit redundant because our questions at this point should be 0. Okay, cool. I think we are coming to a close. I don't want to overgo here. So we'll stop here.